Hello, everyone. I'm Krista Simpson. I chose vocabulary instruction as my topic because it is such an important aspect of reading. I feel that once you learn a word and understand its meaning and its uses, it becomes part of who you are. You own that word from that moment on. Understanding vocabulary is the key to comprehension. Today, I will explain the less often used but more effective methods to teach vocabulary. I will demonstrate one method for teaching vocabulary, and I will discuss some activities we can use to teach vocabulary in a new, fun way. There are two commonly used but less effective methods for teaching vocabulary. The first one is definition copying. This method has been the go-to for many teachers for many years. It has stood the test of time, however, it is less effective, and I feel sure that everyone has had to write definitions at some point in their education careers. But the thing is, does anyone actually remember one of the words that they wrote down and wrote the definition to? I certainly don't. The next method is using context clues as the sole means of meaning acquisition. This method is widely used, but it falls short of developing relational knowledge within the student. These methods fail to translate into long-term memory and do not offer relational knowledge opportunities for the student. There are more effective methods for vocabulary instruction. Let's discuss a few of those. The first one is word selection. This method allows the teacher to develop the list of words that will be taught. It allows for student input as well as the selection, making the experience more memorable for the student. The next method is the graphic organizer. This method allows students to organize the information in a meaningful way for them. The next method is logic and prediction. This method allows students to use logical reasoning skills to predict word meaning. By making the students think and use their brain, you actually create a more memorable experience for the word. The next one is synonyms and antonyms. This method challenges the student to develop examples and non-examples. It allows them to make comparisons, such as how they're like and how they're different. Lastly, we have classifying words. This method allows students to make connections within the word and how the word can be used in each setting. Some examples of this could the word be used in an academic setting, or would it be used in a social setting? Next, we're going to learn some evidence-based guidelines for effective vocabulary instruction. Guideline number 1. The effective vocabulary teacher builds a rich environment in which students are immersed in words for both incidental and intentional learning and the development of word awareness. In doing so, they provide rich oral language, wide reading models, and wordplay. Guideline 2. The effective vocabulary teacher helps students develop as independent word learners. They provide opportunities for students to practice control of learning, use of context, and dictionary skills. Guideline number 3. The effective vocabulary teacher uses instrumental strategies that not only teach vocabulary, but also model good word learning behaviors. Strategies such as graphic organizers, clustering, personalizing learning, and mnemonics promote these behaviors. Guideline number 4. The effective vocabulary teacher provides explicit instruction for important content and concept vocabulary, drawing on multiple sources of meaning. They include content area vocabulary, definitional information, synonyms and antonyms, semantic maps, feature analysis, contextual information, and usage examples. Guideline number 5. The effective vocabulary teacher uses assessment that matches the goal of instruction. They consider depth, how much is known about the word, and breadth, how words are connected to other words. Next, we're going to learn some helpful tips for teaching younger students or developmentally delayed students. The first tip is to provide a simple, kid-friendly definition. That just means instead of using the great big long dictionary definition, we help them create one that makes sense to them. Offer a definition that makes sense in their daily life. How will they use the word every day? The next one is encouraging students to develop their own examples. Help the student to make a connection between the word and something that's important to them. The next one is keep the new word active. It's important to keep the new word active in a student because if they use it 10 times, then they own the word. Next, we learn the 5 key principles that teachers must adhere to in order to teach vocabulary effectively. The first one, focus on rich meanings instead of dictionary definitions. Emphasize the connections among words. Promote the usage of words. And always remember that review is important. This is important in any subject, especially vocabulary. We have to remind students what they've learned. The next one is involve the students in identifying some of the words that will be studied, which means just allowing them to be part of selecting the list. Next, we're going to learn the do's of vocabulary instruction. This is the to-do list. We will always select the words to be taught. Just because there's a list at the beginning of each chapter doesn't mean that you have to teach every single one of those words. Next, we will use strategies to encourage students in word study. Third, we will help students to produce their own definitions. And fourth, we will assess student use of words in authentic writing and speaking. Simply put, we'll just make sure they're using them right. Next, we learn the don'ts. Do not assign long lists of words. 6 to 8 per week is the recommended maximum. Next, do not have students look up a list of words in a dictionary or write arbitrary sentences or copy words multiple times. Next, do not have students simply copy definitions. They do not make long-term memory using those definitions. And lastly, do not give students matching tests that only show memorization of the definitions. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to use a graphic organizer. As you can see here, I've created a graphic organizer. It's got a place for each word, pictures, definitions, synonyms, antonyms, and sentences. I've determined 3 words that I will teach today. The first word is joyful. Can everyone see this? It says joyful. Joyful. My turn. Joyful. Joyful. Together. Joyful. Joyful. Your turn. Joyful. Joyful. Next, we will draw a picture that reminds us of the definition. Because we know that joyful means full of joy or happy, I'm going to use a smiley face. Next, we write the definition, or a definition that means something to you. I see joyful as happy, or full of joy. A synonym for happy, which, does everyone know what a synonym is? It means similar or the same. So a synonym for joyful will be happy. An antonym means the opposite, which would be sad. This is an example. Happy is an example. Sad is a non-example. Now we'll use it in a sentence. Can anyone give me a sentence? I'll write the sentence. I was joyful on Christmas morning. Does everyone see that? The next word we're going to do is fragile. Can everyone write fragile in the first blank? Fragile. The word is fragile. My turn. Fragile. Fragile. Together. Fragile. Fragile. Your turn. Fragile. Fragile. Next, we're going to put a picture of what we think that word means. When we say fragile, what do you think of? I think of like something glass or a vase. So for my picture, I'm just going to make a little vase. And I think I'll put a little crack in it, so I know. The definition for fragile, for me, means breakable. Can anyone think of a synonym for breakable? Remember that synonym is the same, is something similar. So if it is breakable, it is weak. What is an antonym for fragile? What is an opposite word for fragile? Strong or unbreakable. We're going to use this word in a sentence as well. The glass was very fragile. The last word we're going to use is watch. Watch. My turn. Watch. Watch. Together. Watch. Watch. Your turn. Watch. Watch. For the picture, we can use one of two different methods. Because this word has two meanings, it has two different meanings. One is a noun, and one can be a verb or an adjective. So for my picture, I'm going to use the watch. The definition of watch can either be to be vigilant, or it can be a timepiece that you wear on your arm. A synonym for to be vigilant would be steadfast. An antonym would be to ignore. We can use this in a sentence. Does anyone have a sentence they'd like to use? How about, I will watch for falling stars. That is how we teach, using a graphic organizer. My graphic organizer is just a simple one. It's not real complex. It just incorporates the different meanings that I want to connect with my students and the word. Next, I'm going to go over some activities for vocabulary instruction. There are vocabulary sketch notes, which could be just a notebook. And each time that they learn the word, they can just make a little sketch of what the word means to them. The next one is a vocabulary graffiti wall, which is a collaborative word wall. I recently did this in a class, and mainly it's just you put a piece of paper or use the whiteboard, and you put a word on it, and you have all of your students to come up and give a piece of information that they have about that word. The next one is the Flipgrid. This is a really fun way to teach vocabulary. The teacher will log in to flipgrid.com and then send an invitation to all of the students in her class. Then the kids will get on and record a short video for each word. The next method is Vocabulary Jeopardy. Another method would be Raft, or $1 Million Word, which is a really fun game, where every time that a student says the word or uses the word correctly during school time or throughout the day, or keeps a record of it at home, they get their name on the $1 Million Word list. And each week you could offer them a reward for using that word. You could write an acrostic. You could play charades using the vocabulary words, in which students would come up and act out the word. You could do a word scavenger hunt, or you could do a word wheel. And I've actually created a word wheel. And it's super simple to do. You just print it off, and you add your little arrow, and you flip it. And you can make it a game, or you can make it however whatever suits the needs of your classroom. For this one, say a synonym. You could act it out. You could find out the part of speech. You could have the student to draw it, offer an antonym, rhyme time, or use it in a sentence. Or you could just simply have the student to define it. It's a really fun game, and I really thought I would really use this often in my classroom. Next, I have some resources that can help you to develop effective vocabulary instruction strategies in your own classrooms. The first one is Reading Rockets. That is an invaluable resource. This one is 15 free resources for teaching high frequency words, and this is the website. This next one is readnaturally.com. And this one is 15 meaningful vocabulary activities that work in person or online. And this is where I found most of my activities for my classroom. And this is the website. This one offers 21 ideas for teaching vocabulary in the classroom. It is giftedguru.com. And that's all I have for today. Thank you, as always, for your time and your attention.